It's really exciting to be able to join you here today. Although I've lived loudly and proudly as a disabled person for all of my life, this marks my first Pride March. Why? In my previous work life, my profession as a journalist demanded I be an observer, not a participant in events such as this. So what exactly did I do in my last profession? Well, I told stories, other people's, and the sharing of stories is important. Through storytelling, we learn of other perspectives and in turn, hopefully challenge our own. I now work for an independent living center. Each day we hear people's stories. Some are wonderful, some are deeply disturbing, some are angering. We hear these stories in order to help people understand how to change a narrative that has been handed down to them. That despite being told all their lives that others, such as doctors, parents, are the experts, they in fact are. So I want to take a step back for a moment to one of the first people with disabilities to launch a story, and in doing so, launched a movement. Back in the 1960s, a 14-year-old boy fell ill from polio. Doctors saved his life, but the prognosis was grim. He would spend his days confined to an iron lung, a behemoth of a machine that helped the boy breathe. The boy became despondent. He wanted to die, so much so that he refused to eat. As his body grew frailer and frailer from starvation, he realized he did not want to die. He realized that he wanted to live, but he wanted a proper life, one where he could go out in the community, make choices, assume risks, and maybe even make mistakes. That boy was Ed Roberts, widely credited with kickstarting the independent living movement. In the course of his lifetime, he shared the story with legislators, reporters, and people with disabilities. In doing so, he offered a perspective about disability which remains as radical and relevant as it did nearly 50 years ago. His story convinced those in power to re-examine their assumptions about life with a disability could look like. It was not one of confinement. It could be dynamic with proper support from society. Despite all that we have achieved, we know there's a long way to go to achieve the goal of an accessible world where people of all levels of disabilities can participate and contribute. And it's more important now than ever before to share our stories. We're in a period of Canadian history where, on the one hand, legislators need to hear our stories of struggle to help inform what federal accessibility legislation will look like. On the other hand, we have to share our stories of triumph to show that the public that living with a disability is not a tragedy, that being disabled is not a fate worse than death. Stories are never black and white. There are many, many shades of gray when it comes to living a life with a disability. It's one of the reasons a group of my friends and I created Project Value, a Facebook campaign we launched this past summer to make the point that if our nation is going to continue to debate assisted dying, people with disabilities need to be heard. Despite a federal law being in place, the BC Civil Liberties Association continues to insist medically assisted dying is overly restrictive. To prove their point, their latest complainant is a young woman with spinal muscular atrophy. This is the same condition I've lived with for 43 years. I have many friends who also live with this condition. Yet through the BCCLA's claim and their argument of personal choice, all of us have been reduced to medical terms, ones that sound dreadful to a non-disabled public unfamiliar with the way so many of us actually live. The BCCLA story was one that was gaining prominence. It was time to, as we've done in the past, shift the narrative. Project Value was created to enable a wide variety of people with disabilities to share their own stories through text or video about what life is like if you actually have a disability. We continue to encourage anyone who wants to share their perspective of a positive life view as a disabled person to check out the page and contribute. We now have the power, for the first time in human history, to broadly show who we are outside of mainstream media. Thanks to the technology driving social media, we can connect, we can speak to one another across borders, and we can find new ways to share our stories. There's no doubt that these are challenging times to be a person with a disability. Truth be told, when has it not been? For every gain we make, we must remain vigilant in our fight to maintain it. For every barrier that is removed, we must make sure a new one isn't put up. We all know the score. We all know how tiring and demanding doing this day after day can be, on top of just living our lives. But this can also be a time of opportunity. We are showing that our perspectives as people with disabilities matter, just as Dorothy said. And showing who we are in events such as this matter. And by being here, we remind ourselves and others of just how much we have achieved and how much more we can do together. Thank you.